The last stand. The trench had seen better days. It had also seen more men defending its line. Maps called it Redoubt 17, but maps were made by men far from the front, and names did not survive long where artillery fell day and night. The soldiers who occupied it simply called it the last trench, because behind it there was nothing. No reserve lines, no bunkers, no fortresses, only a long road leading west towards thousands of refugees in a city already overflowing with the wounded. If the last trench fell, the enemy would pour through. Everyone knew it, especially Sergeant Vic. He stood on the firing step, peering through the endless rain. His armor was rusted. His gas mask lenses were scratched white from years of grit and smoke. Around him, his squad prepared for what all of them understood would be their final battle. There were only 9 of them left. 9 men defending nearly 300 yards of trench. Vic had his remaining men separated into 2 groups. Corporal Jansen cleaned his rifle with shaking hands. Brother Elias, the squad's attached priest, whispered prayers over ammunition crates. Young Otto, only 17, sat against a sandbag, writing a letter he knew would never be delivered. And Knox stood on a firing step, shouldering his belt-fed machine gun. Privates Sammy and Dean Thomas were along the other side. Brothers that had been lucky enough to get the same orders for this trench. Vic knew this was it, so he left them together. They would die like the rest of them, but they would die together. Gustav sat on a firing step on their side, also shouldering a belt-fed gun. The man beside him was Sergeant Christopher. Chris had lost his entire squad in the earlier assaults, so he fell in. He was a good leader, and Vic was happy to have him. Nobody spoke much. There was nothing left to say. For 6 days, the bombardment had continued. The sky itself seemed wounded. The clouds glowed red at night from the distant fires. The earth trembled constantly beneath their boots. And somewhere beyond the smoke, the armies of hell gathered. Vic had seen them through binoculars the previous evening. Thousands, perhaps tens of thousands. Heretic infantry, ironclad cultists, mutated war beasts, living artillery stitched from human flesh. Things that had once been men, and things that had never been men. The enemy was preparing for a breakthrough, and the last trench stood directly in its path. The attack began at dawn. The artillery stopped. Silence fell. A silence so complete it felt unnatural. Then came the horns. They were low, deep and ancient. The sound rolled across no man's land, like the cry of some colossal beast awakening beneath the earth. Brother Elias crossed himself. God preserve us. Nobody answered. They all knew he wouldn't. The fog ahead shifted. Figures emerged. They would send hundreds until the trench fell. This was just a game to them. The fear men shown made it worth their while. Vic figured they would just send 100 or so at a time, just to break them down, to crush their resolve. A black tide moving through the mist. The enemy advanced without fear, without hesitation, and without end. Vic raised his rifle. Hold! The squad waited. The enemy came closer. So very close. Hold! The trench became silent, except for breathing. The first ranks reached the shattered wire. Fire! The world exploded. Rifles cracked. Machine guns roared. Grenades burst. Bodies upon bodies collapsed into the soft mud. The first wave shattered. Then the second wave climbed over the dead. After that, the third and the fourth. The enemy did not stop. It simply continued advancing over its own corpses. By noon, the front of the trench was buried beneath mountains of dead flesh. Still, they came. Always more. Always another wave. As though hell itself possessed an endless supply of soldiers. Otto died first. A mortar shell landed directly beside him. One moment he was loading ammunition. The next, there was only blood on the trench wall. No body. No final words. Just absence. Jansen stared at the stain where the boy had been, then quietly returned to firing. Nobody had time to mourn. The second death came during the afternoon. A creature reached the trench. It had once been human, perhaps. Its body was stretched impossibly tall. Its limbs bent backward. Its mouth opened from throat to forehead. Brother Elias met it with a shovel. The priest shattered its jaw. The thing ripped open his stomach. Even disemboweled, Elias continued fighting. He beat the creature to death with the bloodied shovel, then collapsed beside it. As Vic ran to him, the priest managed a weak smile. "Did we hold, Sergeant?" "For now." "Good." Blood spilled from his lips. "Then I guess it was worth it." He died moments later. The second assault took more from Vic. The heretics had crawled unnoticed on the other side of the trench. All Vic could do was watch. Gustav picked up his belt fed and sent many to their graves. but there was just too many of them. His throat was ripped from his body by grasping hands, and he fell to the filthy trench. Chris was putting in work too. He was cutting them down with his trench shotgun, then to his sidearm, and finally his shovel. Vic watched as he charged into the crowd, swinging. He died like a true warrior. Sammy and Dean were firing into the bottleneck of the trench, their backs to Vic. Sammy was missing his right leg, and Dean was bleeding heavily from multiple wounds. Vic watched in silence as the heretics overpowered them. Before Sammy and Dean were sent to God, Dean pulled the pins on 2 trench grenades. Vic could have swore Dean was smiling. The explosion took all life that was left on that side. The trench was collapsing. Entire sections had caved inward from bombardment. The dead filled communication tunnels. Rats fed openly on corpses. The wounded screamed beneath piles of mud. Yet the line still held. Barely. But somehow it held. The enemy had not broken through. Not fully yet. But soon they would. Night arrived. Red flares illuminated the battlefield. Their ghastly light revealed horrors no sane mind should witness. Hundreds of corpses, burning flesh, crucified prisoners dragged behind enemy lines, towering abominations stitched together from countless bodies. The battlefield looked less like a war and more like the aftermath of creation itself being torn apart. Vic watched it all, and for the first time in years, he felt afraid, not of dying, of failing, because despite everything they had sacrificed, he knew the truth. The trench could not survive another day. At midnight, the final assault began, the largest yet. The horizon disappeared beneath advancing bodies. There were simply too many. No artillery remained, no reinforcements, no ammunition reserves. Only 3 exhausted soldiers. The squad fought anyway, because courage meant very little in the trenches. Most brave men died. Most cowards died too. The only difference was what happened before. So they fought, not because they believed victory was possible, but because surrender would accomplish nothing. One by one, they fell. Jansen died, firing his last round. Then he drew a knife and disappeared beneath a swarm of cultists. Vic never saw him again. Soon, only Vic and Knox remained. The last trench held only 2 loyal defenders. Vic watched as Knox shouldered his belt fed and climbed up the trench ladder, facing towards the enemy. He opened up and started walking, cutting down dozens of heretics as he moved. Vic joined him. It didn't take long for the ammunition to run out. They both fought in hand-to-hand combat. Knox was removed from his left arm and sent hard to the ground. 2 ghostly figures grabbed his legs and began dragging him into their ranks. Vic could only imagine their plan for him. He looked down at his pistol. 2 rounds left. He locked eyes with Knox. In that brief moment, Vic understood. Knox nodded and closed his eyes. Vic raised his pistol and shocked Knox between the eyes. Death was a mercy. His rifle was empty. His pistol held only 1 round. His sword was chipped. His armor was shattered. The enemy poured over every section of no man's land. Hundreds of them, an ocean of darkness. Vic stood atop a mound of corpses. Blood ran down his face. Rain mixed with ash. The city behind him slept, unaware of the final moments unfolding hundreds of miles away. He thought of home, of his wife, his daughter, the life he'd left behind many years ago. Then he looked east, towards the enemy, towards the endless horde. He raised his pistol to his head and closed his eyes. It would be painless, quick. He would be free of this damned world. He could hear them closing in, dozens of feet grabbing purchase in the soft mud. He opened his eyes and put his last round into the closest figure. His pistol fell. He raised his sword. A final act of defiance. A final refusal. A final declaration that they would have to kill him before taking another step. The horde surged forward, and Vic charged. Nobody witnessed his death. No songs were written. No monuments were built, and no survivors carried the tale home. When dawn arrived, the last trench had fallen. The enemy finally broke through. Scouts reported that the road west was open. The city began evacuating. Panic spread. Columns of refugees clogged the highways. Within a week, the city fell. Within a month, the entire region was lost. The sacrifice of Vic and his squad changed nothing. The war continued. The enemy advanced. Millions died, and the world grew darker still.